I think we have to think about moving at wartime speed. What's at stake is the future of civilization itself. And sometimes the amount of change that's required and the speed at which we must undertake it is seen as just not possible. But I go back to World War II. I can see a little bit of white hair in the audience, and some who can remember also remember World War II. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and sunk a good part of our Pacific Fleet in the harbor. January 6th, 1942, a month later, President Roosevelt gave the State of the Union address in which he outlined U.S. arms production goals. He said, we're going to produce 45,000 tanks, 60,000 planes, 20,000 anti-aircraft and artillery guns, 6 million tons of shipping, thousands of ships. I mean, consider the logistics of fighting two massive wars on the far side of two oceans. Two major wars on the far side of two oceans. Enormous logistical challenge. People were openly skeptical about these numbers that Roosevelt was laying out. I mean, no one had ever seen numbers like this before, not only in this country, but anywhere in the world. But what Roosevelt and his colleagues realized was that at that time, the largest concentration of industrial power in the world was in the U.S. automobile industry. Because even during the Depression, we were making 2 or 3 million cars a year. So after his State of the Union address, he called in the leaders of the industry. And he said, you know, because you guys represent such a large share of our industrial capacity, we're going to depend heavily on you to help us reach these arms production goals. And they said, well, Mr. President, we're going to do everything we can, but it's going to be a stretch producing cars and all these arms too. He said, we're going to ban the sale of private automobiles in the United States. Ban the sale. He didn't say go shopping. He said we're going to ban the sale of private automobiles. And that's exactly what happened from the beginning of April 1942 until the end of 1944, nearly 3 years. There were essentially no cars produced in the United States, and we exceeded every one of those arms production goals. I mean, we needed enormous numbers of ships and planes. Planes, we needed fighters, bombers, reconnaissance planes, troop transports, cargo transports. But in the end, we produced not 60,000 planes, but 129,000 planes. I mean, even today, it's difficult to imagine producing planes on that scale. But it did not take decades to restructure the U.S. industrial economy. It did not take years. It was done in a matter of months. I mean, it was just a few months. Chrysler went from making cars to making tanks, for example. If we could restructure the U.S. industrial economy that quickly then, think of what we can do now if we get serious about restructuring the world energy economy. It's entirely doable.